you just gave me a seat. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to. We're getting here later than normal. But I'm shocked. You're correct.
So, Melissa and I were both on it together. I'm just gonna leave it there. I had my sound off because it was here because we were both taking the class. We both had to be in the same room with our both of our cameras on it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And I'm like, okay. Listen,
Number one.
oh, Becker High.
What?
Oh, Becker High.
What was over there? We 1-2 punch, baby. And then we had a third one roll in there, and then, I mean, I think we had 4 or 5 all just jump in. But
I was just so excited to see somebody on there though. I mean, yes. Quan represented yesterday.
Oh,
100%. It was
100%.
awesome.
Oh yeah, no.
It was awesome. Yeah. I saw all of y'all yesterday because we were all.
I think that's why everyone's here, because it's like,
Everybody's
I think they need a little more.
Yo tengo a alguien que me puede ayudar a hacer los impuestos.
Bev was on there yesterday.
Yeah.
Nick was. Beth was. Chuck was on there yesterday.
Dice que sí, viene por Alejandro. Sí, sí.
Yes, we pronounce.
all good. Everything is.
Wait, so Sherry, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, sí, eso no lo hacen ellos.
Oh,
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, no,
what's funny is I didn't oh, glad you did because I didn't have your name in my own.
Right, so I'm like, if you can.
And it was like, okay,
Yeah, they
so
need to
so I
get control of it.
so I had roster pulled up and I was starting to do the roster to find the phone number.
Pero yo tengo a alguien que
I knew I figured it was you.
Yeah, because it is the biggest one.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, and I'm like, Russell pops up. So I was like, but now you're in my, your name is now.
Okay,
ella puede ir
yeah.
lo que ella puede ir a los Vamos a necesitar eso también con Juan Pablo.
This is a full circle moment.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry. I saw these and I was
Hey guys, when you get scan the barcode that's on your table. Let us know that you were here.
on this channel.
Yeah. Let us know that you were here. Like I saw Chuck yesterday.
Entonces,
I was like, there's so many people I thought I just saw yesterday.
bueno, pues voy a hacer la oferta y le ahorita voy a entrar a los contratos, pero le llamo cuando salga de aquí entonces.
Oh, did you get my message about our brokerage agreement?
I'm sorry.
You did so good, congratulations.
2 hours.
Huh?
I looked into it for almost 2 hours. I'm pretty sure I kind of messed it up, so.
Congratulations. How about your boss? Oh my gosh, that was so exciting last night.
It was great. Did y'all win?
Yes,
Yeah.
but I was afraid they were going, oh,
They were trying not to.
they were trying, yes, they were trying really hard not to win. But, and I didn't realize how much longer a college baseball game is versus in La Liga. They both play 9 innings.
Yeah,
It's like twice as long almost.
yeah, especially with all the new time,
The pitching clock.
that they put in
Yeah.
for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've been following this year. All right, guys, we are gonna get started. Welcome everybody. We've got me today because Jim is downstairs in a meeting. So, before we get started, if everybody could please scan the barcode, or no, not barcode, that's QR code. The barcode, the squarely thingy with all the lines on your thing, just to make sure that we have record that you were here today. And please help me welcome Miss Amanda Churchill with Hello Leverage. You wanna come up?
Okay, like Really first, a city.
Really first. How are y'all today?
Good.
Good, okay, well, thank you for having me. So as she said, I'm with Hello Leverage. We are transaction management, listing management, and marketing support. We already work with, some agents in your office, but, and I know that I've met some of you before, but we are officially, a preferred provider here in your office, which I'm really excited about. We've been around the Rawls Group forever, and we're very much part of the Kidney family. So I just assume we're all family, right? So I have a team of coordinators that we staff, and so the way that we deliver the service is just as important as what the service is. So I'm sure most of you have heard about transaction coordinators or listing coordinators before. We do offer full service. But the way we deliver is a high touch, high customer service, bend, if you will. And so we always assign our agents to one TC or one listing coordinator. You go to the same one every time. And they always present themselves as part of your business so that it never appears like a third party. We work very hard to get to know you, your business, your preferences, how you like things done. And to build a rapport with you so that you do consider your transaction coordinator, listing coordinator, just an extension of your team. We have agents and teams who even put their coordinators' headshots and bios in their listing presentation, their buyer presentations on their website. So again, to integrate as part of your team, because we can understand when you outsource how it can feel a little bit disconnected, we work very hard so that it doesn't. So our coordinators work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We are a very, very high-touch, proactive system in the way that we do things, but we also deliver it with very warm, friendly language, whether that's in an email, a phone call, or text message. We like to bring the Southern charm. I'm from the South, I'm from here, so we're always asking versus telling, always using kind language, because we understand that we're a representation of you in the transaction. And so we're gonna manage everything from contract to close, everything in command, your opportunities, your commissions you have. We're gonna keep your office happy, we're gonna keep your broker happy. You're gonna be the star student if you're not already. Your files are gonna be very compliant, up to date, as quickly as possible and as often as possible. We're gonna do all the communication with the parties on your behalf. So we're talking to your client, we're talking to the co-op, the lender, the closing attorney, and we know what they need from your side of the transaction. We know when to reach out to them, when not, and it really is a collaborative effort there. And our goal is to take as much of the admin off of your plate so that you can do what? Yes, lead generate, whoever said it, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. Lead generate, getting more listings, getting more buyers. This is why we exist. There is no other reason except to enhance the quality of life of not only you, but our team and our families as well. For the listing side, and I didn't pass these out at every station, there's some in the kitchen and I'm gonna have them in the back, but all this is on our website at helloleverage.com as well. But on the listing side, we have 3 listing packages to choose from. So you get to pick what that seller needs. If you just need it live, you need it in the MLS, in command, your showing time set up and lockboxing, we got you covered with the gold package. You want a little bit more of an elevated service where you get a social media image and caption, you get a flyer or brochure design, you get your open houses and caravans scheduled and posted. That's gonna be your platinum package, which is middle of the road. Gold's at 75, platinum's 150. If you really wanna wow your clients and you wanna take duties off of your plate, you're gonna wanna go with the diamond. That's your full concierge listing coordinator. They're assigned to you, they communicate with the seller during the pre-listing period to get paperwork done, disclosures, we write your listing description, we schedule your vendors for you, so if you do staging or pre-inspection, professional photography, maybe you have a sign company, we're coordinating all that according to your instructions during the pre-listing period, and then when we go live, we do everything that's included in every package before that one. So the diamond, you get everything, your flyer, your brochure, your social post. It even includes listing maintenance on the diamond side, so if there needs to be a price adjustment, we'll handle that amendment to the listing agreement for you, we'll get the price changed everywhere, we'll send you a new flyer file if you need new flyers printed, your social posts, all the things. So there's only so much I can tell you in that 3 to 5 minutes that I get, and so we make it very easy to connect with us, either right here on the flyer, you can scan the QR code, or you can go to our website, and there's a link to schedule a consult. It takes about 15 minutes, we chat about your business, about your needs, we do have tailored services as well, like our marketing, we do custom marketing consultations to kind of see what your business needs, we can help with things like your newsletters, your 36 touch, things like that, and so I encourage you just to schedule a consult, even if you don't feel you're ready yet, and this is for agents with admin already, agents without admin already. We come alongside you wherever you are in your business and can add that extra layer of support. The best thing about it is, it's pay as you go, okay? So finally, contract to close is paid at closing, okay? And listings are paid at the time of listings. And we do not charge for terminations, we just stop working on the file. If you wanna take advantage of our termination package, we can talk about what that is on your consultation. We do offer an optional termination package, but we do not automatically charge you. For today, our pricing is $445 per contract. For today, for those who are in this meeting and all your friends that you might can tell today, if you schedule a consult with me today, or you send me a text, or you shoot me an email, and say you're with this office and you were in this meeting, or you're a friend of someone that was in this meeting, we're gonna give you contract to close for $395 for the rest of the year. It is my gift, first time here. So please do sign up, whether you onboard now and you send contracts later, there's no cost to onboard, but that will lock you in at $395 for the rest of the year. Okay? Any questions? Okay, I wanna see some consults. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for breakfast also. I feel like I've known Amanda forever just because she has worked with some of you guys forever in this office. So highly recommend using Amanda. All right, Supreme, you're next.
Excuse me. Good morning, everybody. How are y'all doing? Good morning.
Almost like a school there.
Yeah, that was a tough one to swallow. She was giving me a hard time about Tennessee Lane, knowing that I'm an Alabama guy, so that was really tough to swallow. But we're gonna talk to you guys a little bit about the condo situations. I'm sure that some of you have run into. Does anyone know what the actual issue is with condos?
Joy.
No one? Except for you, Reed? Anyone? No one?
FHA approval?
Their debt,
That's one
That's a big deal.
So.
the HOA.
Fancy assessments, there's a million different things wrong with condos, as you can see, but this one in particular pertains to the water damage deductible. This is separate from flood insurance, that is totally different. But looking at the deductible, where a lot of people have issues is, and there's a formula that you use for it. So using some numbers, let's say that the formula is the total replacement cost times 5% divided by the number of units. So if your total building replacement cost is $20 million, 5% of that is $1 million. Let's say that there's 100 units, that deductible cost is $10,000. A lot of times, condos are either gonna be on a per deductible, or per unit deductible basis, or a per occurrence basis. If you meet either one of those, Fannie is totally fine with servicing those loans. You can go direct with them. In the event that the per unit deductible exceeds that $10,000, for example, you would look at a per occurrence. If neither one of those are met, there are other avenues to get those finished. I closed 2 of them last week, no issues at all. The only thing that you do have to be cognizant of are the other issues that you all mentioned with condos. Are they involved in any sort of litigation? What do the special assessments look like? Are there any delinquencies? There's a multitude of different things that could go wrong with condos. But if you guys have any listings, or if you have buyers that are looking in associations where people are saying that it's not warrantable, which is not true, or that their lender, whoever it is, just can't get it done, shoot us a copy of the master insurance, try to get a copy of the budget and reserves as well, and I'll tell you within 10 minutes if you're gonna have an issue or not, so.
Yeah.
Don't trust the other agent that they know what's going on. Because I've had,
Huge. And
they don't know the difference. And they're giving everyone advice
Yeah.
and sending them to different lenders and
Yeah, fee simple has nothing to do with whether it's a condo or not. I hear that all the time. Oh, it's fee simple, so this isn't a condo.
Yeah,
That's
so
not how
if
that
you,
works.
yeah, if y'all have any questions about it, get with either myself or Kyle afterwards, we'll be more than happy to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
But he's gonna touch on a couple of things for us and.
Yeah, and specifically to jump on the condo thing, my wife runs our condo desk, and so we both get a very good firsthand view of kind of what's coming in. A lot of lenders are not able to lend on these 5% water deductible condos, and they are all over the place. So I know Hunter and I are both getting calls from listing agents, and we say, hey, we can approve this, and they say 5 other lenders can't.
Yeah.
What's the difference? And really, it's just us working directly with the investors and that sort of thing, and making sure that we're working in the areas that we can to get it done. So that's big. It is very common. If you haven't experienced it yet, I wouldn't be surprised if you do soon. But then the other thing, and I know we've harped on it a bunch, but Supreme Essentials. Again, what it is it's the online courses. One is for credit building, one is for budgeting, and they each take about 30 minutes. They're for the buyer to do, and then once they've been completed, about an hour at a time, they get $1,000 credit in addition to any other credit that we're giving towards their closing costs. And then specifically as it pertains to you all is you can go online, we'll happily share the link again, and you can fill out just a quick kind of profile, and our marketing team will create a landing page, a URL specific to you all, so that it's a scenario where you guys are presenting the credit and the content to your buyers and anybody really. They don't even have to get a house, they can just do this to better themselves, so it rocks.
And we've had over 500 buyers do this in the last few months, so you're looking at 500,000 towards closing costs, so. Especially with everything else, with the cost of everything going up $1,000 is $1,000, so, you get it where you can. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So I had an agent call me yesterday, it was a condo situation, and the buyer was denied because of this very reason. And they were outside of their financing contingency period.
Oh, okay.
So guess what? If the buyer doesn't close, they're gonna lose their earnest money. So I don't know, and maybe Cheryl can enlighten us when she comes up, if there are any special steps on the horizon
Hey,
to kind of
Sherry.
protect us. Yes,
I've started doing, and these guys probably do too, is if you're writing an offer on a condo, I make a special step that said financing contingency does not expire until all the condo documents have been reviewed and approved.
and approved. Yes, and we will go into that in a little bit more detail, but yeah, there are gonna be some tweaks that we're gonna have to start using for our condo purchase to protect our buyers and their earnest money. All right, so first of all, I just wanna say that you guys made my compliance broker heart so happy yesterday when I saw all of your pretty faces on Cheryl's Zoom class, CE Zoom class. I mean, come on, how many did you have on there total?
We had 111 people.
You guys rocked it, cause like, y'all dominated, which was awesome. I so appreciate that. I have now taken this ACE class twice, and I'm looking at a third one to take, because it's gonna take hearing this over and over and over again with the new changes for it to click and feel comfortable. So I love that you guys were on it yesterday, but I highly recommend going and finding another class somewhere and doing it. And I know Cheryl's got some more in-person classes coming up at other market centers, so jump on those if you want to, or if it fits into your schedule. If not, go online and find some online classes to take. And just because it is mid-year changes, if you are taking it with different instructors, you still get credit.
You take the same class if it's
Different
with two different instructors?
You get credit as long
It
as you're
just
doing.
has to be 2 different course codes.
Yes.
So when you take a class from me, that course code, those course codes only.
So that
belong
course
to-
code yesterday was different than what we did here?
No, because
No.
those were both me. So the Zoom was me and the in-person was me,
Okay.
so that's the
Okay.
same code. But if you took Seth's class, that's a completely different course code, and I don't know who else might be teaching it.
Yeah,
Maybe the other good one though.
I was gonna say, I did
His
Seth's last week.
involvement
Yeah.
with the creation of the forms.
Yeah, I did Seth's last week. I love Seth. It was a great class. Cheryl's more fun.
I would say we won't tell him that you said that, but I might tell him you said that.
But yes, Seth was an excellent class that I recommend that you go and take online. Because he's got a lot of online Zoom classes too. But it was interesting hearing two different attorneys talk about it. So that was I would always recommend doing that also. So thank you for everybody for being here early, because we're gonna let Cheryl, who is going to be our main topic, head, and you need that, what I have on the screen?
I might, just
Okay.
in case.
And then I'm gonna hand out to you what we're talking about today. Please forgive my scribbles. And just because they're my scribbles, don't mean they need to be your scribbles.
Yeah, I think the front light, that way, just in case I point at it.
These are
that
just
way
my
you can
notes
see
when
it.
I was taking the class, so ignore my scribbles. There you go. We're gonna let Cheryl get started with this.
So, how many of you guys have taken a mid-year contract change from someone? And then, how many of you have taken more than one? Good people. Oh, no, okay, it's okay, yeah. It's really important, I have never in 20 plus years ever taught a mid-year contract class at all, ever, because it's never been worth it. And I've never had 3 hours of content, and there's 3 hours of content. So there's little things with lead-based paint and some of the other stuff. But the main point of it is our brokerage changes. So first of all, because we get the questions, one of the primary questions has been, if I have a brokerage agreement, do I need to get it re-signed after July 1? Do I need to use the new form? The short answer to that is no, because July 1 is just the arbitrary date that our new brokerage forms come out. It's not any special date in, nationally or in Georgia. We did try and get the forms out in June, but quite frankly, couldn't get brokerage documents finished, and so we had to punt and delay for a month. They are scheduled to go live on July 1. I think that they probably will. We finally got confirmation yesterday that the lead-based paint change got finalized in a form. So I would definitely take a class. I think Seth's might be a paid class, I think there's.
It was $30.
It's $30, yeah, to take his. I don't currently have any other ones scheduled for July. I was really trying to get everyone into the classes before they end. But who knows, we may throw up another CE class. I was so concerned about making sure everybody got on it that we actually raised the limit on our Zoom for yesterday to 1,000 just in case. I wanted to make sure anyone who could get on would get on. And of course, as always happens, I teach the class and then immediately I get a text from somebody, are you doing any Zoom classes? I'm like, seriously, I just got off the Zoom. I thought we had publicized it enough, but who knows. You should have seen it on June 18th, which I think was last Wednesday or Thursday. FMLS announced that they're not going to be pulling compensation out of their system. So it will still be there. Between that and the lead-based paint and some of the other things, I had to rewrite the class multiple times as I was teaching it, because I was pulling into parking lots to teach and forms were changing as that was happening. So I think they're mostly solidified now. Because we are realtors, and because the code of ethics is probably going to be changing, I don't think, and at the end of the day, your brokers are the final word on everything, but I don't think that you should probably going forward rely upon what might be published in FMLS as compensation. I think you need to use one of the 3 compensation forms that we now have. The best part of FMLS continuing to post compensation is that I think the hardest thing for buyer's agents was gonna be, do I even take a buyer to a house if I don't know whether or not there is an offer of commission? And certainly, and FMLS even said in their announcement that it creates clarity, and I completely agree with that.
But that's only until, it could be till maybe August 17th, they're only gonna do that. They're not saying they're gonna continue that after.
They're saying that they're
done.
not gonna participate in the settlement, but what we do have to anticipate is they could change their mind at the drop of a hat, because it is a business and a legal decision. I think they made that decision knowingly. I think that there are a couple of non-board MLSs out west that have taken the same position. I think that's where they got the idea from. And they basically, I guess, said, we have a big enough legal war chest, we're gonna gain some market share by doing this, and come for me if you wanna come for me. So, but I do think that we need to use the documents that we have to protect ourselves. What I don't want is, I don't want you to win a fight, I want you to not have a fight.
Amen.
And that is, so whatever we do to prevent there from being any confusion or disagreement or anything else in a transaction that's got enough moving parts to begin with. Let's focus on what the buyer and the seller need and not fight about the commission parts of it. So we do have the documents that are out here. The first one is the pre-showing compensation agreement. So, how many of you in the room, do a lot of listings? So, the recommendation is that you fill this out. My recommendation is that you fill it out at the exact same time that you are filling out the seller brokerage engagement agreement, because they have to match. So the best thing to do, the best course of action is to fill them out at the exact same time. If all of the commission is going to be cooperative, then only you and an eventual buyer's agent will need to sign the signature page of it. If the seller is paying any compensation directly to the buyer's agent, and they have selected that option, you all have selected that option in the brokerage agreement, then it would say so here, and then the seller would also need to sign this, so they would sign it at the time, again, that they're signing the brokerage agreement that matches it. If you revise the brokerage agreement, you would revise the pre-showing agreement. You should have these available, particularly if you have a property that is not in FMLS, or you may be dealing with someone who doesn't have access to FMLS. So you should have those available. However you do that is whatever makes your little heart happy. But what you need to plan on is you're gonna be getting potential requests for these things at a less than opportune moment for you to respond. So if someone asked me for what the purchase and sale agreement looked like in 2015, I've got a cloud drive on my phone, and internet permitting, I could send it to you in under a minute. That's really the kind of situation that you need to be in. There was one agent in one of the classes who said, I'm gonna fill them all out and email them to myself. That feels like a lot to me. But you do you, whatever way you wanna do them. You can post the information, but what you can't do is put it on anything that's also getting any sort of an IDX feed from, so I don't know what your personal websites look like, and I don't know what the brokerage website looks like. Yeah.
Most agents do.
But, and so if you, what the settlement says is that, particularly like Georgia MLS, the board one, that if, you have a website that's getting those IDX feeds and you're also posting compensation on there, that MLS is supposed to get y'all.
So Cheryl, you mentioned that yesterday on your Zoom, and it was gonna be ultimately the broker's, I guess, decision at that point. And she's right, most all of our websites have IDXs from the MLSs, so even if we
Because
have
you wanna use it as a source of overall information.
correct, so if we have a separate tab that's buried under something, we're still saying that is not going to work.
I don't know what position Georgia MLS is gonna take. And I don't know whether you all can get an answer from Georgia MLS. So until you know that it's okay, this is not one of those situations where you wanna ask for forgiveness, not permission. In this situation, you need to make sure that whatever you're doing is correct and that you have verified it, instead of being the one who tests the waters for everybody else, right?
What if we did not have our IDX come from Georgia MLS and we just had it come from FMLS?
That may be okay. I mean, and again, the brokers will probably give you guys the final guidance.
Do we
But if
have
it's
to
not,
do?
that means that Georgia MLS can't cut you off, right? Because it's not then at that point, there's no link between a board-owned MLS. And I'm assuming as we have this conversation that we're really only talking about Georgia MLS and FMLS. I don't know if any of you all belong to other MLSs in other areas, it really is, the difference is it board-owned or is it not? Yeah.
So can we, that's a shared question also, can we upload this
compensation on Remind and on documents? or
No, you
not?
can't, because those things,
Cannot.
you can't do it in showing time, you can't do it in Remind, you can't do it in any of those things that are also linked to the MLS. So that would be, now what you can't, and I've also gotten the question of, can I put in the listing or can I put in showing time, call me for compensation information? Number one, no, because you can't even talk about the potential that commission is being offered. But you can certainly put on there, this is the best way to reach me for any other information that you need. Because what the buyer's agents, if they can't get, if they don't have access to FMLS, if they don't have any way to find out what, you know, when I talk to buyer's agents and say, how are you gonna get this information? Well, if they don't know the best way to contact that listing agent, they're gonna be lighting you up on every way possible to contact you because they don't know what you respond to. So they'll be calling you, texting you, and sending you emails. If you don't want 3 times the information for the exact same thing, then I think you really should, in all of your listings, say, if you have any questions, this is the best way to get in contact with me.
I asked you yesterday, but going back to the website, so you got an IDXV going to your site, but what if you create a separate page, another page on your site that says, hey, these are conversations.
If it's within the same URL, again, I wouldn't test it. If Georgia MLS says they're gonna shut you off, then I think yeah, so now if you set up a separate website, then you just have like Cheryl's listing information, right? I mean, cause we have things that are like, we have Thomas and Brown's website and there are some things on there and that's like our company website with some of our education stuff. But I created a Smart Steps website that's just mine, I can do whatever I want with it. So you could do something separate for that and that's what, like $20 a year for a domain registration. So, or you keep them all in a cloud drive, like Google Drive, and then when they respond, when they reach out to you, you just send them the link to that cloud drive. You've got all of the pre-showing documents in there. They're all labeled, the file name is the property address. They can grab the one that they want and go. There was a question over here, yeah.
On this form, you said if FMLS is not gonna participate, if we upload a document to our listing, it doesn't go anywhere beyond FMLS, it's just able to be pulled down by the agent. Like if we're gonna make an offer, we pull down the seller's disclosure and all that. Could that go in there since FMLS is not participating?
That's the Remind, you can't.
Yeah, that's where they all end up.
I know, but it's not going anywhere, that's not an IDX feed to go anywhere
Well, that's what
beyond.
Cherry
But if you
said.
put it in FMLS, does it show up in Remind?
Yeah,
No.
Yes,
It's in
Yes.
Remind, but only agents can download it.
can pull it.
Yeah, it's not public.
It's
And
not
is
public.
Remind also linked to Georgia MLS?
No.
no,
Then Remind may be okay, just because
well,
of-
that's what I was
But at the
asking,
end-
Yeah.
you put it on Remind.
Cause we upload docs like your seller's disclosure, your CAD, stuff
CAD,
like
your
that.
web-based
And
paint.
it shows the little symbol that they can pull it if they're interested in that listing and their client wants that info before they go see the house. So can we add it with those docs, Sherry?
It is not my decision to make, it's Ms. Lynn LaCrosse, and we're in discussions right now.
But if you put it
And that's the
under
conversation that a
private-
lot of, that's the response that, cause I like taught a class the morning after, like 9 AM, the morning after the 18th. And they put the broker on the spot in the middle of the class and he's like, well, this is just happening, let us make some decisions. We have a little bit of time because your forms are so don't let them have the conversation and make the decision. Because next week is when these forms go live, but we still have a month and a half
Right.
before the settlement. So what we do between July 1 and August 17th is figure it out, right? And continue, and you'll be getting information from them about what you should or should not do. But what I did say in the class is, don't go all Wild West on this thing and think you're gonna be super creative and find the way around a rule. What you need to do is follow the guidance that your brokers are giving you and understanding that they're dealing with this as it comes.
So this is a Sherry question. So it's been practiced that we do the bridge or the dual entry, I don't know what it's called anymore because I don't do it, I had someone else do it. But we've always listed both in Georgia MLS and FMLS, right? And I believe Zillow pulls everything from Georgia MLS, correct?
Both.
Alright, so if I said to you, you know what, I just wanna do all my listings in FMLS.
Can't,
You can.
we have an agreement with both
Because the
listing
brokerage
services.
has agreed to provide, like the contracts are with Cause there have been people for years who wanted to do the opposite, because
Yeah.
Georgia MLS is a fixed fee and FMLS is the 0.0127 or whatever, which was super annoying. It's becoming less annoying today, right?
So that's a brokerage thing, so, right?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah.
okay, I
It
was
is.
wondering that the other day.
But I'm sorry, Sherry, you have the option when you upload to Remind to do public or private? No, am I wrong?
Yes.
Well,
I'm reminding you.
You
I don't think-
public or private?
The question isn't really public versus private, because you could build a website, list all your properties, and put copies of this document, like link all of these on the face of a public website. The question isn't public versus private, the question is a broker MLS, like it links to a broker MLS or not.
so if you had a website just you that you created with just your listings and maybe a little bit about you, can the agents put that link in private remarks on FMLS?
Yeah, I mean, if it's just a general, in FMLS, definitely.
A link to your personal website that has all these forms on it, whatever you need.
But you'd have to edit that, cause everything you put in
That's true.
goes to vote.
It does the ditto.
So you'd have to go to Georgia MLS and delete that.
If
Yeah.
you use the
Or
ditto
go with
system.
FMLS.
Which is why if you say this is the best way to reach me, and it is a single email address that is info at, whatever the email address is that you wanna use, and you know that the responses to that are, if you set up an email address, which, and you just had it info@cherylking.com, and it had an autoresponder on it that just responded automatically with the link, you could automate that. And that's just setting up another email address for yourself.
Great.
But Cheryl, once again, if we're even talking about FMLS, it sounds like that could be just a Band-Aid if FMLS
Changes their
turns
mind.
there and changes
It
their
could,
mind.
Yes.
and because right now what the Code of Ethics says is that once, if an offer of commission is available in an MLS, which is also a problem, because this is the Realtor Code of Ethics, right? But what it currently says, and I'm sure is getting revised as we speak, is that that offer is good up until when? When can the listing agent change it on you?
Anytime.
Anytime before you make an offer on the property. We don't know what's going to happen with the Code of Ethics. We don't know, license law is so arcane, it thinks your licenses are still in frames hanging on walls. So I don't even wanna discuss what license law says, and it is not nearly as specific as the code. I think the benefit right now of you being able to see what the FMLS information is that instead of going out and having to ask the listing agent, who didn't even take one class about the mid-year change, much less 2 or 3 of them, what the heck their offer of compensation is, and then showing them this document and teaching every agent in the world how to do this in 2024, if you can see the information that is out there, then you can fill out that pre-showing document, you as a buyer can sign it, and then you send it over to the listing agent for e-sign, and then hopefully get it back a little bit faster, right? So good listing agents will fill these out and publish them. I think good listing agents will continue to do that even if FMLS is publishing. I think the beginning of July is gonna be a little wonky for all of us, right? But good buyer's agents, if they have access, can also fill it out.
I have a question regarding why the seller would be paying the buyer's agent
Directly?
Yes.
So the example that I gave in the class is, let us say that I'm your seller and I'm gonna make a total offer of commission of 10%. I want 60% of that to go to my agent. Part of the reason for that example is, and I snapshotted something on one of those stupid nationwide Facebook groups this morning about some agent who got pissy because the seller's agent was making more than her, and I just about lost my mind. But commissions are not split 50-50. You all do not do the same amount of work on any single transaction. So let's say that I'm the seller and I'm willing to pay a total of 10%. I want 6% of it to go to my agent, and the 4% would go to a buyer's agent who comes in. If I do a total of 10%, and all of it to my agent, and that an unrepresented buyer walks into that property, how much does the listing agent get?
10%.
If I do 6% to my agent and 4% directly to a potential buyer's agent, and an unrepresented buyer walks into that property, how much money did I just put back into my pocket?
4%.
That's the difference. I don't think I'm going to be your normal seller, right? Because I know what the forms say and I did the math and I am anticipating. My worst case scenario is I pay 10%, right? So I'm willing to do that, but I am thinking maybe there might be an unrepresented buyer who walks in and you said you were worth 6%, I'm gonna make sure you get your whole 6%, but I'm gonna put the other 4 back in my pocket. So that would be the big difference. But that also means that as compensation documents need to be signed throughout the transaction, that the seller also has to be signing all of those things. If the commission, you can realistically, you can tell your seller, you have agreed to pay 10% in commission, all of that is going to flow through me. If anything needs to be signed going forward, I will take care of those things. You can also probably rightly say that if they do ask about an agent, a buyer who comes in without an agent, well, I might not represent them, but I'm gonna sure have to make sure they do what they're supposed to do in order for you to get a house, right? So if I thought you were worth 6% when somebody comes in with an agent, you're worth more than 6% when an unrepresented buyer walks in, because we all know we do a lot more work when it's a FSBO situation or when it's an unrepresented buyer. So it's just a conversation. And that really, don't answer a question they haven't asked, quite frankly. Seth said a couple Thursdays ago, we were both at the 400 North Ford, and I don't know where he got his stat, but he said 2/3 of Americans have no idea this settlement happened. So just bear that in mind when you're having the conversations. So, and when you're talking, what you should really be talking about is what you're gonna do to market their property, what your value is, what you're gonna bring, what they need to be doing and what you're gonna be doing, and how you all are gonna get the most amount of money for this seller and get this property sold so they can go on to the next step in their life. That's really the conversation that you should be having. So, the concern I have about the pre-showing compensation document is, I think the intention of this form was that if you get this thing, let's say that listing agent posts it out there, you're the buyer's agent now, right? You get it, you sign it, you send it back. It has a date, go back to the prior one real quick. It has a date up at the top, and then it has a number of days that it's good through. You have to make an offer within that period of time. What I wish it said, it doesn't say explicitly enough, is that this is an offer that will survive past that date. I think we'll revise it, probably not until January 1. So when you see it and you make an offer during that period of time, so it's during the period of time that it was locked in, my recommendation is that you don't wait until the 14th hour like you usually do an instructions to closing attorney, go ahead and get that signed off, or include the broker compensation exhibit to the contract and make it a part of your agreement.
Did you suggest the time frame be similar to the listing period instead of 30 days?
I think you're talking about for the pre-showing for how many
Yeah.
days you put there. What I've said in the classes is if you think your seller listed the house too high and you all are gonna be having a conversation in 8 days about lowering the price, then you may wanna make this compensation document expire the same time you all are gonna be discussing the price, just in case that discussion is also what they're gonna offer as cooperative commission. Well, if I've gotta lower the price by X, then I don't wanna pay, I'm not gonna pay that much to a buyer's agent who comes in, the buyer's agent's gonna have to pick up some of the slack. So I would think about it that way. You don't wanna make it
Vice
too
versa.
short and have them expire and have to keep redoing it. You don't wanna make it too long, and if you put it in a cloud drive, you may not know who has a copy of it, right? If you work it out to where they're emailing you and you're physically sending it, then you've got a little bit more of an idea of who may have a copy of it. But if I were you guys, I'd be trying to figure out how to automate this if at all possible, because that's just gonna be a lot of communications as these properties go on the market, right? So. It is friction. It is the feeling that if we create enough friction, we'll destroy the system. But we all are very self-sufficient people who can figure out how to work through the friction, right? So any other questions on the pre-showing compensation document?
When does this start?
Well, the document will go live July 1st, but you're still gonna have offers of compensation in all of the MLSs at least through the whole month of July. I mean, if I had to hazard a guess, Georgia MLS is gonna wait until the very last moment and turn it off at midnight on either the 16th or the 17th. I don't remember how, it's probably the midnight on the 16th.
So I'm just confirming, you can put it on purchase and sales on the offer as an amendment or an exhibit or whatever it is or not?
Let's say that,
Cause up till now, we wouldn't do it.
up till now, you could do it, you just didn't because the offers of commission were elsewhere and you didn't have to do it. There was never anything wrong with putting commission in a contract other than who are the parties to the contract?
Who
Who can amend the contract? The buyer and the seller. Do they need your permission to do that? No. So the reason that we have the broker compensation exhibit instead of you all trying to write something in as a very special step is because this would be an exhibit to the contract, so we're adding it back in. But it also says clients can't change your compensation on you without your permission. So that's why you would use this. We also we tried to help, we put in the purchase and sale that if there's anything in there related to compensation, it can't be altered without the broker's permission. But this document is the better thing to use. So you can use this to confirm what you know or to request what you would like in terms of commission. Because there may be no offer of commission or a low offer of cooperative commission. And in order for your buyer to buy it, because let's remember, they can finance the purchase price, they cannot finance the compensation. Then they may make an offer, but it's predicated on, I promised in my buyer brokerage agreement to pay my buyer's agent 4%. You're only paying 2%, I'm gonna request another 2% as part of the agreement. Now, we're gonna put the loan officers on the spot for a second. There are 2 possible ways you can ask for that additional money. Dude, you can't just ask for straight closing costs. Because closing costs can be used for whatever. The only reason that you would need to ask for the additional money earmarked for commission is the potential that seller paid closing costs are subject to a 3%, 6%, whatever cap. But I do not believe, I know with VA they are not, because they confirmed it in the thing that they sent out a couple weeks ago. But with Fannie, Freddie, FHA and all of those, if a seller pays commission, is that considered a concession? No. And at higher sales prices, it probably is not gonna matter as much, but at lower sales prices or times where you have that cap, then that would be the time that you would need to ask for it as commission and not just as an amount of seller paid closing costs. But y'all can say whatever you wanna say.
You're right.
Yeah.
It would just,
Perfect.
I would like to add, Cheryl, one thing.
Uh-huh.
It's gonna be extremely important for the agent and the LO to have really good communication if the buyer is responsible for that, because that can affect their reserves. It can affect the net payment, obviously, so that's gonna be something that needs to be discussed before an offer is made.
Absolutely, and it should have been discussed anyway. The purchase price should have been discussed, what we need in seller paid closing costs because of cash should have been discussed. Compensation obligations need to be discussed. It was always true that if you put a buyer in a car and started looking at houses and they had not had a conversation with a loan officer, you are not doing anyone, including yourself, any favors.
But the question that you asked was, if the seller is paying for the buyer's agent's compensation, is that part of the seller concessions? And so it's not.
And that is the, if it doesn't matter because you don't have any other seller paids anyway and the sales price is higher and you wanna just ask for $5,000 in seller paid closing costs that pays the commission plus maybe a little bit of something extra, I mean, you can do it whatever way you wanna do it. Buyers can use seller paid closing costs for anything that they wanna use it for, but we also included a list of the most common things. And a few years ago, when we added the buyer paid commission to the brokerage agreement, we also added it to the list in the contract specifically that buyers can use seller paid closing costs to cover their commission obligations for their agent. So. Did y'all hear that? Everybody was like, really? Yeah, just ask for an amount of money. Just ask for X dollars, the way you always ask for X dollars. If you think that that is a less complicated negotiation, because sellers are used to looking at that. And there may be a seller who says, I don't wanna pay for the other agent. Why am I paying for the other agent? I don't even wanna pay for my agent. Yet when they get an offer that just says, I'll pay X amount of dollars and I'll pay X and I want $5,000 in seller paid closing costs, they're not thinking about what it's for, they're just thinking, do I wanna, does the deal work for me? Do I wanna contribute $5,000? So.
It's not fun.
What?
It's not fun.
Well, and when you're making those offers, you never know what the seller's response is gonna be, right? You're using the same determination tools that you have always done as professionals. How long has the property been on the market? How motivated do we think the seller is? What do we think, do we think the property is overpriced or do we think it's reasonably priced? What is the buyer's financial position? Because they have already had those conversations with the loan officer on this. What do they have the ability to do? What are they willing to do? And what do we think a seller will accept for the property?
So I'm just repeating it, what you just said is, because I gotta go mishmash. Buyer can pay buyer's agent through closing costs?
Yes.
You can.
Absolutely.
And where would it show,
Well, what it'll really show is that we charge the buyer for the commission, and then you put the $5,000 credit on the front of the altar where it always was.
Okay.
All it does is at the end of the day, the $5,000 is that much less the buyer has to bring to closing.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And the only thing that matters to the buyer is how much am I gonna have to bring to closing? And that is what these guys get, what we get, what the county gets, what the HOA gets, what you guys get, and whatever we get in total concessions reduces that.
And the instructions to closing attorney, is that where we're specifying that $5,000 is coming from the buy side?
Well, if the.
How does the attorney know?
No,
that-
you do the amendment to address concerns, or in the original offer, or in the counter offer, you've said seller paid closing costs.
But how do we let the attorney or the broker know that that closing cost is actually for our commission and not just
You
reduction?
don't have to.
What?
We're just putting a $5,000 credit on page 1 of the settlement statement.
But you gotta tell them.
What do you mean, tell me
But
what?
you list instructions to close in your commission, I mean, you put it on there what you get paid.
Yeah, what you get paid,
Yeah.
but not the seller paid closing cost amount. On the instructions to closing attorney, which is the next one, the last one, there are 4 items that are on here. Number 1 is what the seller is paying their own agent. Number 2, I'll get you in a second. Number 2 is what that seller's agent is sharing with the buyer's agent, so the cooperative commission. Number 3 is what the seller is paying a buyer's agent directly. And number 4 is what a buyer is paying for their own agent.
So are we putting in number 4 what the buyer is paying?
And
That's what I was asking.
you would put the commission amount right there, you would put the TC charge, the transaction coordinator charge right there. If your buyer's paying the $300 or whatever it is for that. Anything that the buyer is paying toward the buyer side would go right there.
So that's how, when the checks are cut, you know.
Well, that's how when we prepare the settlement statement, that's how we prepare it. And if I'm your seller and we did the 10 with 4 being shared, it would be the 10 and the 4. If I'm paying the buyer's agent directly, then the 4 would be in the number 3 spot. So, and then who has to sign the instructions? The closing attorney. The 2 agents need to sign it, and then if you're using number 3, if the seller is paying a buyer's agent directly, then the seller also has to sign. There is no buyer signature, because you all have always been telling us the buyer owed a $300 transaction coordinator fee. We don't question it. You have a brokerage agreement, we trust that you have some written agreement. We don't ask for you to prove what the seller had agreed to pay in the seller brokerage engagement agreement. It's only gonna come up if there are arguments and accusations and that sort of stuff happening, and I'll get both of you in
No,
just.
you don't have to come back to it.
There had, question has come up a few times in the classes of, do I have the right to see the other person's brokerage agreement as to what they agreed to with their client? If you ask me for my brokerage agreement with my client, you are accusing me of either not knowing what I'm doing or being a liar. When you make that accusation, you better realize that you're making that accusation. I think probably if you think that there's a serious problem, there's a misunderstanding, things aren't lining up, what I usually do when I read contracts that evidence some misunderstanding and somebody who may not know what they're doing is I usually reach out directly to the broker. You would probably maybe have your broker reach out to that broker. In fact, when I do it, I say, please don't tell them I reached out to you because I don't want them to hate me. But this agent, because I had one agent who copied created words that had the same font size and style and everything else as one of the paragraphs in the CAD and pasted her own language over one of the paragraphs of the CAD. And I reached directly out to the broker. I'm like, hey, just so you know, can you just pretend like you caught this in contract review? And they violated federal copyright law, they did this, they did that, they practiced law. And also they practiced it badly, so the seller still has to pay all the transfer initiation and administrative fees because they didn't know what they were doing when they tried to fake part of the document. So.
Actually, you kind of answered it, so just say the listing agent, the seller, says, I am not paying the buyer's agent. I'm sorry, but I'm not doing it. Okay, so then in that transaction, the buyer's agent just asked for $5,000 in closing costs, and the seller agrees to it.
Yeah.
Will that seller know at closing at some point that that money went to the?
No, because since TRID, it used to be with the old HUD that what we would do is we would find $5,000 in charges and we would shift them all over. And then we would have to run a tape and then the lender would change one fee and then we would have to, and I'm like, this is the 14th, I went to law school to avoid that. And this is the 14th time I've had to do this, where since TRID, because they're doing a CD and we're doing an ALTA, all we're doing is putting a lump sum $5,000 credit that everyone can see on page 1 of the settlement statement, right below the earnest money and the loan amount and the other credits that the seller is getting.
Yeah, they
So
don't see the checks cut.
What?
They don't see the checks cut.
Well, and even when you see the checks cut, it doesn't matter. The fee is on the buyer's side, the credit is a charge to the seller and a credit to the buyer. And quite frankly, you can make the argument it went through, I mean, if you could make the argument that the buyer still paid the commission because the seller paid for everything else, now the buyer has enough money for commission. It's not earmarked or physically shifted or noted in any way, because it doesn't matter what thing it went to. What the lender's looking at is, are there enough allowable costs on the buyer side that a seller could contribute that total at least $5,000? And once that's true, we don't have to decide which fees that they were. And as I said, with the sales prices that we have, it's not really hard to use up a decent amount of seller pay closing costs.
But using her observation, if I'm the seller, this sounds to me like class action suit 2026. Because if a seller tells their agent, I do not want any money to go to a broker, to a buyer's broker. If it's hidden,
It's
and
not
I-
hidden.
It's not hidden.
It really isn't hidden.
but if
This
it's not
isn't playing
disclosed,
fast and
but
loose.
if I
It
can
is disclosed, and they have more than $5,000 of fees sitting on their side. This just helped, it is the same thing as it always was when we asked for seller pay closing costs.
But if I'm the seller, just playing consumer here.
Sure.
And trying to think through this, if I'm helping a buyer buy my house and I'm contributing to the normal mortgage fees and whatever, and I've said, I do not want any of my money to go to a buyer's broker, period. I'm gonna pay the listing, I'm gonna pay you. And I learned that part of the money that I agreed to as the closing costs went to a buyer's agent. To me, that's exactly what this lawsuit is all about.
But I don't even know that you can say it went to that, it went to their total bottom line. That's all that, that's the only place.
But you're
it
still
went.
conspiring.
Yeah, but I
was
No, it just reduced the amount of money the buyer had to bring to closing. I agreed to pay $405,000 if I get $5,000 in a credit back.
Yeah, but what I would say is the seller just said, okay, I will let it go to the buyer. The buyer's the one that gave it to the other agent, what the seller.
How does the buyer broker get paid then?
What do you mean? Oh, it's still charged to the buyer on the settlement statement. Just like the appraisal is charged to the buyer and the closing attorney's fee and the title insurance and all of that get charged to the buyer. And then you see a credit from seller to buyer for $5,000.
The buyer's still wiring money over for all those
I
closing costs. Who knows?
But isn't it a closing cost, in the
Hey, guys.
financial contingency specifically said, if you are X amount of dollars will go to closing costs, and the following where the closing costs can be attached to.
Yeah,
I
it says
don't-
the buyer can use it for everything, including blah, 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 commission.
Does
And the
it say
client agrees, the
commission?
seller to sign that,
Yeah.
agreeing to that on the
And
contract.
does it say that this buyer can give
I
this
mean,
as a commission?
have we had times where someone picked apart something that was like not really relevant at the end of the day? Yes, that is like literally less than 0.1% of the transactions that I have ever done. You agreed to give a $5,000 credit to the buyer, you gave a $5,000 credit to the buyers.
So I'm gonna
What-
respond
there's a
to
question over here.
you.
Hey guys,
So back to your comment, because I see you're
Right.
smirking still. It's
I'm
not
just
just
like,
about-
thank God I don't do residential
But-
work.
Listen, you already, before you ever show them a house, you've got a buyer brokerage agreement that says, buyer, if the seller is not paying my commission, my fee is 3%.
Sure.
Okay. It's not interrelated with what happens at the closing, with the closing costs that we're asking for, because if you find them the perfect house, whether the seller pays $1, $0, $5,000 in closing costs, they're gonna move forward with that house. So it's not conspiring, because they may move forward with that house, probably will move forward with that
Yeah.
house, with 0 paid in seller paid closing costs. So
and the
you don't marry
negotiation
the two
normally looks
because
like,
they're independent of one another.
I wanna offer, you know, I wanna offer 400 if I get 5,000. And then the seller comes back with, well, I want 405 and I'll give you 3,000. Like, none of these things are about which fee it pays. It's about how much do I want in a purchase price minus how much I'm gonna give in concessions at the end of the day. And the only time that I could see where it would really come up is if the seller is adding up all the costs and saying there's not enough fees in there to assess it with, but that means you set the amount wrong to begin with, so.
Now, we could
I-
say,
hold on.
can you say to the seller, Mr. Seller, I understand you don't wanna pay any commission to the buyer's agent, okay? But please know that the buyer will be paying the buyer's agent, and they also can pay it through the closing cost.
I
if
don't think you answer a
Uh-huh.
question that hasn't been asked.
Right.
I think that's the main part of it is, I don't think the more you try and over-explain and overcomplicate this part of it, it is,
Too much
you know,
info.
cause do you really tell them, hey, you may get offers above or below with X amount of cost and these, no, you just wait to see what comes. And then you have conversations with your client of, well, they did give you your offer price, but they want $3,000 in closing costs. Let's talk about that. So all we're really talking about is not what it's gonna go to, it's you're really getting $397 and not $400, right? That's the conversation that you're having.
All right, real quick. Best business practice. And help us with this, because I can think of it going several different ways. We have the pre-showing compensation. Do you recommend that we include the broker compensation exhibit to our offer if we have the pre-showing? And then does that bleed into the instructions of closing attorney, or are all three forms necessary? When do we not need all three forms? This is gonna be fun.
I do feel like we have one form too many, okay, and I think most people would probably agree with that. I think that I don't know, I go back and forth on whether we can eliminate one of them. I think obviously if you're making an offer for, if the pre-showing offered you two and you're asking for the other two as commission, then you have to attach the broker compensation agreement because you're making a request for additional money. I think that if what you got in the pre-showing document was sufficient, it covered what your buyer was obligated to pay you, I think you can either go ahead, I'm a little bit afraid that somebody's gonna do the pre-showing one and try and pull the rug out from underneath you because you go past the date that's on page 1 of that document. That just terrifies me, because you all are gonna be dealing with some agents who don't really know what they're doing. We all have dealt with agents who don't really know what they're doing, and God help us all. So I think what you should do is either confirm that by including it in the broker compensation agreement and making it an exhibit of the contract, or go ahead and get the instructions to closing attorney signed at the time that you're entering into the contract.
Don't we have to say though, if the buyer is requesting, we can't say we are requesting. So it doesn't say on here, should we put a little note, buyer requests?
Let me go to the broker
I'm looking at it.
compensation one real quick.
Broker compensation.
It
I mean, it's the
is,
same thing,
because
but that's what we
because
have.
it is an exhibit, and it's an agreement between the buyer and the seller, the buyer and the seller are agreeing to it.
Okay.
Now, just the same way that when you make an offer with the 201, right? You say, the buyer and seller agree that the purchase price will be $400,000. If the seller wants 405 instead, then they send over a counteroffer that say, the buyer and the seller agree. You see what I'm saying? So they're the parties to it, but he is absolutely 100% correct that you all are not asking for commission from the other agent, which is definitely a license law violation, or from the seller. Your your buyer is asking for a concession to be able to buy this house. That is what they are asking for. You also need to make sure that you do not put zeros on your buyer brokerage engagement agreement, because then the buyer's not asking for anything to defray their own cost, are they? They're asking for something that only benefits you, and that is going to be problematic. You cannot put zero for your comp on a buyer brokerage engagement agreement, period.
So what do you do to instructions to close when you're making the offer, but they can drag their feet and not
I
sign it?
know, which is why I think the problem is you can't make them sign the instructions to closing attorney. You would think that they would if it all came over together, but you can make them sign the broker compensation agreement because it's an exhibit, right? And if you include it as an exhibit and the buyer signs off on everything because they're making the offer, and then the seller uses the counteroffer form and says, no, we want a closing date of X instead, when the buyer and the seller signed that counteroffer, they would both agree to everything that was in all of the exhibits.
If you have the broker compensation as part of your contract, do you still need the instructions of closing attorney?
I don't think that you do. I mean, that's what I'm gonna be telling our staff when we train them on the 3rd is, I guess, just send me every contract and we'll figure out how we're going. So I think I need to take myself off the, I don't think I'm gonna be doing any closings for a while. But if you have anything that includes all of the, I'm gonna give them some examples. If you have everything in the broker compensation agreement, you don't need to do instructions to close an attorney. So, but if the broker compensation agreement didn't have the amount that, like, you only put in there what you were requesting from the seller and didn't put what the buyer was paying you, then you still need to do the instructions to closing attorney. So I would use the broker compensation agreement and I would make sure everything is on it, that way you don't even have to do the instructions.
Why don't they make it easy on people, and anybody that gets a license, they have to take classes?
Well, we
I don't
do
understand.
technically, but we don't make them take particular classes other than license law and the code of
Yeah.
ethics, right?
And
Yeah,
just-
your biggest struggle is gonna be closing attorneys who haven't even seen these forms, and lenders who are not aware of what's coming, and other agents who don't. I've been at closings and people are like, oh, there was somebody on Facebook who was like, oh, I heard the only thing that changed, this was this morning, I think that I heard the only thing that changed on the brokerage agreement is that it's not set by state law. No, that's not all that changed on the brokerage agreement. So that's gonna be and that's somebody who's at
Still
least
gonna
paying
be the wild,
attention.
wild west for a while.
It will
Yeah.
be, but you're gonna have a month and a half to kind of settle into it, so, I mean, you don't really have to do any of this in the meantime. I don't know, I would say practice, but if you're doing something you don't have to do, then I don't know that it's necessarily helping anything. Because for a month and a half, you're still gonna have cooperative commission being published in Georgia MLS.
And I will say with you guys on a Quan issue, in the past, I've stopped in the last month getting ready for this. But in the past, I would go ahead and approve your pay at close without you having the instructions of closing attorney in your opportunity, because you gave us the information on your pack. And about a month ago, I stopped doing that, and I'm now making that a required thing in your opportunity before I approve your pay at close, knowing that all this was gonna be coming about. And it's even more critical now that you have some sort of, whether it's pre-showing, whether it's the broker compensation, or whether it's the instruction closing training. I'm not gonna be able to approve your packs without that. So, heads up, everybody.
The other thing in my conversation with different brokers, I'm not sure I've had this conversation with Sherry, but the other thing that I've asked is, do you all review when the brokerage agreement gets turned in? And there are still apparently a significant number of agents who do not turn a brokerage agreement into their office until they are under contract for purchase and sale. You need to be turning in the brokerage agreements as they are executed and give your brokers the opportunity to review and help you in these transactions.
What's our office policy? Can you tell me our office policy?
I know, but I'm telling them what's in it for them.
As soon as it's signed, upload.
Yeah.
I may be speaking for more than me, but I thought I understood this, but after today, I don't have a clue. Why and when would it be appropriate to use 258 if you're using everything else?
I would be afraid to rely on just the pre-showing documents, so the reason that you would use the 258 is you can make it and exhibit it to the contract, and to his point, you can't make the other side sign the instructions to closing attorney. And dude, I have been in hundreds and hundreds of transactions where when we ask for the instructions to closing attorney, the agent who is responsive to us is saying they can't get it from the other side. So
That happens an awful lot.
It really does.
And I'm looking at this as this exhibit is replacing you guys writing special steps about.
That's correct.
Because I am seeing more and more special steps being written about commissions. I'm not gonna accept that anymore. I want this exhibit. If commissions needs to be addressed in the contract, I want this exhibit attached. I don't want a special step written.
And still do have, and we modified them for mid-year, 619 and 620, which are the request steps. They're there, but this exhibit is really what you should be using. I want all of the party, I want them to notice it, be aware of it, and be cognizant of the
That's
fact that they
two
can't
fifty-nine
change
you're
it.
talking about,
What?
two
The
fifty-nine?
259.
So when would you use 258?
258 is what you would use to tell the world what the commission is. The pre-showing one. That's how you, in the absence of it being published in an MLS, and think about the different ways that you may be getting that information. You would prefer to get it in the 258, the pre-showing document, but what it may be is you reach out to the agent via text message and say, hey, I wanna go show 123 Main Street. I've got a client who's interested in it. Can you tell me whether there's any offer of commission and what is it? And all you get back, you get a text message back that says 3.5. Then you need to turn around and put that into an agreement. Did you have a question?
I'll go, yes.
Yeah.
This is a situational question, but wanted to know if this would possibly be a ethics violation. Say, even though it is disclosed what seller paid closing costs can go to, you're representing the seller, you have a buyer's agent that, say during due diligence, they're basing their closing cost request off of the repairs. They're saying, we need it for repairs this, repairs that, mentioning nothing about the compensation. You agree to the closing costs, and then after the fact, either you or your client find out that it wasn't for repairs, it was for the agent's commission. Say your client feels like, once again, that situation of that wasn't what we were told, you didn't relay that information to your client, could that possibly be an ethics violation and say a buyer's agent being dishonest in why they're asking for it?
Well, but you're giving it at closing, when is if the buyer's getting a credit at closing in lieu of repairs, right? When are they making the repairs? After their closing. Has anyone ever gotten a check from a car insurance company because there was damage to your car and you just decided to cash the check and spend it on something else and live with the damage that was on your car? A buyer has the right to do that too.
Yeah.
Right, in any situation. If you give me, what you've given me is money because the property isn't in the best of conditions, but it's my house now, and if I decide to go to Aruba with that money instead of replacing the hot water heater, that is my right. And oh, by the way, I don't think the seller's coming into my house, because it's my house now, to see whether I replaced a hot water heater or not.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking situational, just on somebody thinking that's not what they told us, and then wanting to call Greg, something like that.
No, and in the contract, it says they can use closing costs for whatever they wanna do it.
Okay.
Really. And usually when you write it, you just say in lieu of any repairs. So you're giving me money so you don't have to do work.
Yeah.
Right?
We don't say those.
So I'm an FMLS as a listing agent, I put in 2.5% commission to buyer's agent. She went ahead, going to show, she's printing it, right? Does that hold? It doesn't hold what I hear you saying, as much as that showing compensation.
It says that you need to make an offer within this time. I wish it said that it was binding through the contract period, like binding through closing.
So that piece of paper means
I think it's
nothing.
supposed to be. I'm afraid that the language isn't quite strong enough, which is the only reason I'm saying go ahead and confirm it in the broker compensation document as well, because that is an exhibit to your contract.
That was what I was just gonna say, this isn't part of the contract, so
It's
whatever's
not.
in here is irrelevant.
It's not, and what I'm really afraid of is agents who have a bare minimum of knowledge. And again, what I said at the very beginning, I don't want you to win a battle, I want you to never have to fight a battle. And just take care of the stuff you do have to fight.
It's just a heads up.
Hey guys.
For agents that we show more than 10 or 20 properties, so you should recommend us to get a pre-showing compensation agreement before we show the property, and then when the client
Do you
decides-
normally pull up the cooperative compensation in an MLS before you show them the 20 properties? If you don't care and they don't
But
care.
I mean, but now, since I don't have anything that can support my commission on FMLS, so I'm thinking that.
I'm thinking that as a buyer's agent, we don't take buyers to properties that if we looked at all of the available data, they were never gonna be able to buy. That's that is, and whatever it takes to rule those out is what you need to rule out. The other question that I've gotten is, can a buyer just tell me, I don't wanna look at any properties that don't have cooperative commission? Two things, you may have some properties that you're not sure whether there's cooperative commission, either being offered or could be negotiated because the property's been on the market for 400 days and the seller may be a little bit more amenable now. But the other part of it is, that's not the only determination. I mean, a property at the top end of their price range with no closing cost and no cooperative commission and tight money, that's gonna be a tough situation.
Yeah.
A lower price property where they have a little bit more comfort in there, then yeah, they can pay their own closing costs. Yes, that might include commission. So, it's not just about commission. It is about all three of those buckets together and what the buyer's financial wherewithal is to buy it. And digging through all of that does involve making sure that whatever you're doing and whatever you're looking at, a loan officer has said, yeah, they're good for that. They can definitely be shopping in that price range. We know what the closing costs are gonna be. Yeah, we've got room there, so.
Cheryl.
Yeah.
To Yvette's point, I mean, it would be, you can't just have one of these filled out for one of the 10 houses that you're setting out on a Saturday to go see. I mean,
It depends on what those 10 listing agents do, right? It
so
depends.
phone call, to the listing agent before you get out there.
That's the friction part.
More knowledge.
And guys, we're gonna be talking about it in future team meetings about what we can do as listing agents to make it more available, because,
And what you can definitely tell your sellers is well, first of all, you can discuss why cooperative compensation aids, particularly in the market now. But in most markets, because of the ability to finance purchase prices and not compensation. But the other selling point for you as a listing agent is, I'm gonna provide all the necessary information out there, because buyers may not come and look at the neighbor's property if that agent is not responding and giving the information. If you have 10 possible properties and you're on kind of a tight timeline, and 7 of those agents respond back to you and give you the information and 3 of them don't, I think you're gonna go to the 7 first and see whether you get any information on the other 3 in the meantime, right? And I think that's the smarter tack to take. So the 3 listing agents that didn't put it out there, that didn't show you where to go look for it, that didn't provide you that information, I think that their homes just naturally are gonna get shown less.
So to go full circle, and this is something that y'all are discussing, if this form is allowed to be uploaded as part of your listing docs, that is going to make your job as a listing agent easier, because they'll have all that
It
data
would, cause it's the same,
available.
it's basically, that they're finding it the same place that they were always looking for it.
Right.
yeah, they're gonna get the sellers that lead-based paying if they need it in
Yes,
cash. if they
and then
need it.
you'll know what the compensation is.
Yeah, they definitely know the benefits of it, they're just thinking
Right.
through the
Of course.
exposure of liability.
I was just gonna say, you know how you say to the other side sometimes when you're taking your buyer out, are there any offers on this property, are there any reason I shouldn't show it? It's just gonna be another step.
It's another
that
sentence in your conversation.
You're gonna make part of your.
Great verbiage.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys,
Okay.
let's give Cheryl a huge. And now, I'm still spinning, and guys, none of this is going to make sense until we start having to do it and practice it, and we're gonna make mistakes. And then we will find a rhythm, especially after August 17th.
And if, the crazy situations that unfortunately you all end up in the middle of are great stories for classes, so feel free to share. And you can always reach out to me if you have questions or need help too, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we got a few more things, we're not done yet. Keep your seats. Yes, all right, so we are giving out first listing. Dude, Lisa Crosby, she is here. Got her first listing, yay. Sweet.
My kids will fight over this.
Good job, good job. All right, guys, April Cappers. First week. April? I said April. All right, Kelly, she's not here.
Chris Van Zant.
Not
Yes,
there.
sir, all right.
She's listening, I think.
Oh, she is? Okay, well, y'all take that with you.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yvette. Okay, who we got next? Tina. Is she here? She's not. All right.
Oh, Shawn Michael, awesome.
There you go. There's another one for the overbacks. Amber, is she in here? All right, guys. All right. Well, we'll give those to them. Okay. Congratulations to Michael and Shelley. They reached the milestone of what? What was the milestone they reached?
His birthday, his birthday
Oh,
was
that's, we
yesterday.
ran out caps. Okay. Clark, is he in here? No. Okay. Oh, June.
Rachel Ellie.
I can't see the pictures. I should have left the lights off.
Not here.
Not here, man. We got a lot of cappers. Caitlin's not here, I don't think. Okay. Paige.
Not here.
Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Guys, he's on a roll right now. Y'all are gonna hurt my bonus next month. Anita and Craig, they're not here. Mike? Nope. Here you go, sweetheart. Mwah.
Got it?
Thank you. All right, so this Thursday, we have a lunch and learn, homes.com, 11:30 to 1. Did they need RSVP? Yes. Okay. Scan that to RSVP. And then on Friday, we have 12 to 1:30. We got our very own Brenda Bashir, mastering appraisals, lunch and learn. And then headshots. Okay.
And Ignite's coming up.
Ignite's coming up, so all those in this room that need Ignite, please jump in, please don't wait. Remember, if you're a newly licensed agent, our office policy is that you get into an Ignite class within the first 90 days. So here you go, we need you to jump in on that. That's it. That's it. What about the payday?
We don't have one.
No, we don't have, nobody gets the payday. All right, guys, and Jalen, you had finishing words for us.
It's up to you. I mean, we still got 5 minutes.
I'll do it. If y'all will bear with me, I'll make it quick. Lessons learned is traditionally about contracts. Coming up at the Cheryl King and Sherry Aristi, I am not about to talk about contracts. What does perseverance mean to you all? One or two people. What does perseverance mean to you?
Staying the course even when you feel like bailing on a situation in this business is just staying into it. Keep your head down and keep going.
Yes, exactly. By definition, by definition, I'm gonna hit this really
Okay,
quick.
sorry about that.
You're good. By definition, perseverance is continual effort to do or achieve something despite difficulties, failure, or opposition. The action or condition or an instance of persevering. This picture right here, do you know who that is or what happened yesterday?
34 years.
NHL championship. That's Paul Maurice right there. Paul Maurice, yesterday, if you look at this is his defining moment. That is the moment that every child thinks about when they're playing a sport. It's that championship moment. But before he was known as a champion, he was known as the biggest loser in hockey. That's the NHL coach that has taken the most losses. In 1985, he was the last draft pick. He's had 736 losses. 2 Stanley Cup losses. It took him almost 2,000 games to get to this moment and almost 30 years of coaching. This was the definition of perseverance. If you watched this game last night, even if you aren't a hockey fan, you had respect for these men and how they carried themselves as true champions. And I just wanted to share a quick clip of an interview that he did yesterday, because it really just spoke towards his character. If you can make it full screen.
And Paul, you waited your whole life to be called that, what's 4 more games, right? And as we were waiting to visit with you, I saw you lean back, your eyes closed, and I as best as you can, how do you make this moment make sense? How do you articulate the feelings within?
Not well. I'm usually not lost for words. But there's this incredible sense of connection to all the people, even though they're not here, my mom and dad, my brothers, the whole family, that you need to support you over time. And I kind of begged them to support me for 30 years before we could share some joy with them. And that's what this whole thing feels like at this point, right? Just that connection here. Every player that comes over, you have this incredible connection with, and the coaches that you share those moments with. But you're right, like the wives and the children and the people that get moved from town to town so you can follow this silly dream and chase that damn trophy. And it's nice to be able to catch up to it every once in a while.
You can stop it right
The
there.
list of things I appreciate, Paul.
So on your journey, as you're chasing that trophy, know that it's not always gonna be easy. In real estate, we have to persevere through the news, outside noise, we have slower listings at times, empty open houses, unsuccessful cold calling. Sometimes you have a bad co-op realtors, you can have awkward first impressions, and you can go through internal things also. And so know through all of those things, keep your big why in mind. Keep that life that you're working to establish or maintain in mind, and know that it's all worth it, even though it's not always easy. And so you all are amazing. Our office is crushing it still this year. Some people may say it's not the greatest of market, not at Keller Williams Atlanta North. So I just want to thank you all for being great, persevering agents, and let's crush it this second half of the year.
Go. Go be successful, go have fun. How many do you need? Is that okay? Yeah.